record right now. I'm going to say good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We've been talking a lot about listings because definitely this is the time to get listings. Has everybody felt and seen the changes? They're out there, right? Changes are definitely happening. Market's been definitely moving in a slower direction. Everybody noticing that? Listings are sitting on the market longer. I was talking to Pippa yesterday. She was with a customer in either Champions Gate or Reunion. I cannot remember. And she said, it's been horrible. She's been taking customers and there's like 2 or 3 things available. And she was there the other day and there was like 62 homes on the market available. That is very different, right? It's a very different market. So this is actually great for us because what does this mean? It means that sellers need actual marketing companies. It means that they need a real estate company who knows how to find the buyer, who knows, what was that? Who said something? Who knows how to market the home, who knows how to actually get the right exposure to sell the home in a good amount of time for the best price. And that's not those local companies who just throw it in the MLS and hope someone sells it, okay? So there are companies out there, we all know them. Oh, did I, what? EXP? Yeah. That are all about not the customer, right? These are companies that just put it in the MLS and hope that someone else sells it. Those are not the companies that are going to do well here. So I was with Fran yesterday and we've actually pulled up expireds. Guys, there's expireds again and a lot of luxury expireds. So as on Monday, I hope a lot of you will be joining me for our workshop in Dr. Phillips. Bring your laptops, come and join. We are going to finish our digital farming, which is why we're talking about the listing agreement today, because we need to focus on a couple things. How to get the listings, what do we do when we have them? Let's talk about contractually what we need to be doing. And also the MLS has been changing things a lot as well. So how do we get credit for these things? So these are some of the things we're going to talk about today, because these are very important things that we need to consider in this market especially. So number one, we are back to a regular market, I would say. Would you guys agree with that? Anybody want to share? I mean, it's a little more normal, right? So what does that mean? You can't expect to sell the house in a day, in 2 days. You can't expect multiple offers. I'm seeing things in the MLS still saying that we're going to have multiple offers. Don't put that in the MLS. It looks silly. We can't expect for multiple offers, right? Maybe we'll get it, but we certainly can't expect it. So these are things that we have to understand. This is better. This is more like a regular, market, which is great for us again. So that means that we have to take a regular listing, which means what? How long do we regularly list a home for? Not 3 months. Okay. Our minimum is 6 months. So I would say 6 months to a year, write that listing agreement for. If it sells in a day, fabulous. Do I expect that now? I don't, guys. Do you? And if it does, you better ask yourself, I mean, maybe you got lucky, or did you actually get the highest and best price? Maybe not, because we are out of that. We are not in that frenzy anymore. Does everybody agree? I mean, if you don't agree, please share. Anybody disagree with me? What do you guys think? What do you think, Teresa? Can you hear? Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you. You're quiet. You're off mute, but now you're no volume. No volume. Nope, muted. I don't know. We got mute Miss Teresa. What is going on today? Anybody else? What do you think, Victoria? Do you agree with that with the market?
Definitely, I don't know what to add more. Yeah, it definitely slowed down. It's hard to get leads right now, and yeah, we're trying hard.
Great. So honestly, there's so many great ways for us to pick up listings. This is the time for Sotheby's to shine. First of all, I think we all need to be, the next campaign I'm going to do after the digital farming is done is going to be expireds. So Tom, is there anything you can share? First of all, the question is, if your home didn't sell in that market, I mean, what are we going to do to get it to sell now, right? Why didn't it sell? Number one. So that's one thing. Now, what are some of the things we could do, Tom, to make it advantageous for a buyer to want to get in there. And let's talk about real quick too, and I'm going to ask your opinion here. Certain areas are going to slow down differently. I was talking to someone yesterday, said, well, Lake Nona didn't slow down. Lake Nona totally did slow down. And why did Lake Nona slow down? Because a lot of our average sales price here is under 650. And what does that mean? People who need to get a mortgage, right? These are people who used to qualify, who maybe no longer qualify for these homes. So we need to be versed in what's happening. So can you share with us some great stuff about the market, something about we need to know about financing?
Sure. Do you want to turn your screen?
Yeah, that's easier.
So that way we'll have feedback.
Okay.
So a couple things, rates have gone up. I was going to share a chart, and I might email it to everybody later. But you look at the history of the last 30 years, rates are really not high. They're normal now. So compared to what it was 6 months ago, yeah, they're high. But so we have some products. One, our professional jumbo product is base rate of 4.25. So that, and it can go down depending on relationships and all that kind of stuff. So that is 10% down payment with no PMI up to 1.25 million.
That's great.
So that's great. And think about that. If you have anyone that has a construction contract that their rate has expired because of the supply issues, I've run into that on a couple of issues. That's something maybe talk to us about, that we can maybe put them in a 10-1 arm at 4.25 or lower. Doctor loan 100% up to 1.25 million. That's at 4.3. No PMI at 1%. And we're also doing our standard portfolio loan, which allows for limited reviews on condominiums.
Come on in.
And that is 10% down with no PMI, and the base rate's 4.875. So we still have some competitive rates. And then we're doing a lot of the, people weren't doing no money down deals for our AMP product. Now almost all of Lake Nona qualifies for no money down up to basically $650,000. But it's a first-time homebuyer program, but everyone qualifies without income restrictions in Lake Nona and surrounding areas. I want to do a lunch and learn next week, if possible here, and teach you how to search the MLS for areas outside of Lake Nona in Orlando and other areas. I just did a search for someone in Tampa, and it was crazy how much qualified in Hillsborough County and Pasco County.
So what we're going to do next week is we're going to do an expired program at 10. And then we're going to roll it into the lunch and learn. So you get to come, we're going to do expired letters, and then we're going to eat and do this program, because guess what? When you sell your home, you're now qualified for that program. So is that correct?
Well, the rules are pretty lenient on on our AMP program. I'll actually maybe confer with Maria on that, because I'm not.
She told me that.
Okay.
As long as you've closed on your home, you're now qualified because you no longer own a home.
Okay, awesome. And I know the Hometown Heroes is also another one that's a lot of buzz on, and we are qualified for that. So that is a 5% second mortgage to pay for down payment and closing costs. It can be used in conjunction with FHA, USDA, VA, and conventional.
So we're going to take this opportunity to put buyers and sellers together, get sellers a reason to also help sell their home, but also find them buyers, right? Because if we could put a buyer pool together with a seller pool, that's going to help sell the home. So that's the idea. So next week on Thursday, we're going to do expireds. We're going to write expireds. We're going to pull the expireds. We're going to write a quick little expired letter. And then we're going to roll into our lunch and learn on how to find these people, find the census tract, and then give them a reason on how they can buy with no money down.
One last point is that, again, there are a lot of people that were excluded in this market we've been in for the last year or however long. And their rents have gone through the roof. So they need to buy. And I've got a lot of people out looking, so, in that market. So it's a market that's changed, but there are opportunities. We're here to help.
Well, thank you, Tom. All right, anybody have questions for Tom? Okay, so moving on, let's take a look at this listing agreement, because we get all these great listings and we want to know exactly what to do with it. So the first thing I want to look at is this. So we go and we get an expired, right? And they say, listen, you bring me the buyer, all right, You can bring me the buyer, but I do not want to write a listing agreement with you. So what do we do in that case, guys? Anybody? What do we write in that case? Come on, we write a commission agreement. We all know that, right? We don't write a listing agreement to start because they're like, I don't want to list, but if you bring me the buyer, I will go ahead and pay you, right? So we start with what's called a commission agreement. Everybody familiar with this? Here's the commission agreement. So we write their name in, we write Premier Sotheby's, may show and use diligent effort to sell. We don't want to lease because we don't care, whatever the property is, to, and we could write a prospect's name in if we have one, or we could write to any prospect brought by Premier Sotheby's, because then it'll say, in the event the property is sold to prospect or any prospect procured by broker. It already says that. So the point is, if we don't have a specific prospect, we tell them we have a group of prospects because we have a program where people can buy no money down, no PMI. And we have a group of people that we already have interested in purchasing in this area because we have done this program, right? We don't know their name, maybe, right? Then now we can say to any prospect brought by Premier Sotheby's International Realty. We can write that there because it'll be just reiterated down here. Is everybody clear with that? And then you don't say here about within, you could say within 180 days. I wouldn't write a date, right? Because you don't want to give an end date. It's better to give yourself time within 180 days, 365 days. You know, people get freaked out if you write that. I would say 180 days. It gives you time. So that gives you a period of time that you can bring people in, right? And then you could write a percentage, a flat rate, you can write in here. So this percentage of the gross purchase price of the property, what is that?
3%.
I mean, if it were me, I would go for more because what if there's another agent on the other side? So what if, for example, you have a buyer who has another agent? If I wrote 3%, what are you getting? So I have done this where I've written more here and I've co-broked it with somebody else and I've split that co-broke. So this does not have to be 3%. Thank you for saying that because that's what everybody thinks initially. So if I bring and handle both sides, will you pay me 6%? They have said yes. If I bring, you know, if I bring and do both sides, I mean, they will, if they may say yes, if you bring it and you handle everything, I will take care of everything you need. I will take care of all the contracts. I will handle both sides. Will you pay me that? They may say, well, maybe 5%. You can negotiate. This does not have to be 3%. Because if it is 3%, now you're doing double the work and only getting paid for one side. Because you're representing the buyer, right? And you're representing the seller.
Do you represent the seller?
Well, if you don't, who is? You can say you're not representing, but the reality is who's doing all the work? Who's getting everything?
I mean, if there's, for example, a dispute for an escrow, who would you defend?
Nobody. In a dispute, it's handled by title.
Not a dispute when it starts getting heated before.
So this is the thing, you're really a transaction broker, right? So it depends on what you write on the contract and where you put yourself. So you could say, listen, I'm non-representational on your side, but at the end of the day, really, you're still doing double the work. It really doesn't matter how you look at it, right, guys? Everybody clear with me on this? So the question is, do you want to work for nothing? I don't like to work for nothing. So my point is use this as if it's a mini list agreement. It's like a temporary list agreement if you so choose, because if you're really using it to get a listing, because that's what many of us do, go for the 6% here. You don't want to list your home, you don't want to put it on the MLS, you don't want to do all that trouble. I have a bunch of buyers. I can represent you and the buyer without you going through all that trouble if you will allow me. If I do go through all of that, will you pay me the 6% if I do all that work? Right? Why would you not? Does that make sense? Thank you, Leonie. Everybody make sense in that? Anybody have a question about that? So I just want everybody to be clear because a lot of times people feel like they have to ask for 3% here and they don't. Okay. Then it says in the event of the sale or the lease or the time broker's fee is due, even if they default on the executed sales contract. That is language right out of the list agreement, which means if they're in contract and the seller defaults, the seller is still supposed to pay you. Now, does anybody, you're new with us, but has anybody ever seen Premier Sotheby's go after the seller to pay us commission? We typically don't do that. It's bad business. But if the seller's a real jerk, could we? Yes. If you push me far enough, will I? Usually I know I will do everything in my power to make sure you stay in that list agreement because that's what we've agreed upon. But I typically don't go after commission to the seller. It's just not something that we ever want to get known for. Could we though? All day long, but we don't really ever do that, just so you know. So it also says here, the broker's fee is due. Oh, that's right, if they default on it. And then the seller agrees with the prospect, if the seller agrees with the prospect to cancel the executed sales contract or the lease, in any litigation arising out of this agreement, the prevailing party will be entitled to recover non-prevailing party reasonable fees. This is all the same language that's included in a listing agreement. Then it talks about if the property is a commercial real estate. So this covers you under the Commercial Real Estate Lien Act. So you could use this even in a commercial property. This particular commission agreement could be used for commercial, it could be used for land, it could be used for regular residential. So that's what's nice about it. And then it defines what commercial real estate is. Additional terms could be anything here. You could say, if working with another outside agent, we will handle the co-broke. But do you have to write that there? No, because it's really nothing to do with the other person. You really, less is more. Agents sometimes feel, I was talking to an agent about it yesterday, they have to disclose everything. If it doesn't pertain to them, it doesn't affect them, it doesn't affect them negative, positive, or any other way, it really doesn't matter. I said I'm going to do a service, I'm doing that service. They're paying me what they are paying me for the service. If I'm sharing that with somebody else, it's none of their business, is it? It's like when a seller likes to tell me how the brokerage should be paying the agents. It's none of their business, right? Same thing, okay? So this is a very important thing that we understand how to use this and how it could be used for. But let's say I take this. Now, back in the day, because MLS changes all the time, we would take this and then they'd say, okay, we get a buyer, go ahead, you can put it in the MLS so you can get credit for both sides. Then we would take a listing agreement and then we would put it active and then pending. You can't do that anymore. Yeah, I know. Because of clear cooperation, as soon as you have a contract, it has to go pending, which a lot of times they don't want us to do that, right? So they don't want us to put it in the MLS because as soon as you had the list agreement was when it's supposed to go in the MLS, which is not going to happen, right? So what can we do instead? Anybody know? Anybody? Probably not. That's why you're on my class. This is what I want you to take. If you are working with a commission agreement, the same day you get the commission agreement signed, I want you to do this. And you know I hate waivers, but this is the office exclusive, no entry into the MLS. Okay. Now, this is the thing. You cannot put anything unless it is an exclusive listing agreement into the MLS, right? So a commission agreement can't go in the MLS anyway. But we're going to take this office exclusive. And this is saying at the owner, we understand that excluding it is obviously giving a bad thing because the MLS is amazing. We understand that marketing the property in the MLS is, against the rules. So you can't market it outside to anybody else unless it's in the MLS. But this is only applicable if you have a listing agreement. And by the way, NAR Clear Cooperation is not applicable to commercial property. Residential, yes. Land is residential, yes. But if it's land commercial, no. So it's only applicable to residential property. Okay, everybody with me? Okay, so, and then it talks about fair housing, because why is fair housing on there? Because fair housing is on everything. We will never discriminate based on any of the protected classes. So that's what's on here. But essentially what this is saying is MLS is amazing. If we're not putting your house in the MLS, it's not getting any exposure. You understand that, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? Yes, yes, you understand that. And because it's not going in the MLS, because of your clear cooperation, we're not allowed to market this anywhere. But the truth is, we don't have a listing agreement. We can market it to anybody we want because we have a commission agreement. You only have to worry about NAR Clear Cooperation with a listing agreement. Everybody clear? But remember, A commission agreement does not protect you because anybody can go now work with the seller. It's like it's like an open listing, right? Because if I have a commission agreement, you can have a commission agreement, you could have a commission agreement, the seller can work with anybody they want, which is why we don't want to advertise it anywhere, right? But this is what happens. If we get them to sign this, and we're just saying, listen, we're taking this because I know you don't want to be in the MLS. Is that correct? I mean, this is something that if I bring you the buyer, you're going to let me sell it, but you're understanding that we're not putting this in the MLS. This is not what you wanted. Yes, that's what I want. Great. It's essentially saying all that, isn't it? Am I going into and of course, we're never going to discriminate based on any of the protected classes, fair housing. Yes. Am I really going into all the non-clear cooperation? No. Is it relevant? No, because we don't have a listing agreement, right? That's all I would explain on this, because if they want to push me, I could say, listen, if we decide that you do want to list it, then we will go in the MLS, and I have to be in the MLS within 5 business days. You can go ahead and explain it at that point. If it's like that kind of person who wants to know everything. How many people you find like that? Those are your engineers, right? If you find an engineer, explain it. But if you don't, take this, okay? Get this signed. Because as soon as you take that commission agreement, we want to put this in the MLS. And the reason we do is this. If they allow you to take the listing after and say, okay, fine, you can get the MLS credit, right? That happens because now they like you because you sold their home. We can then put it in as data sold entry and give you credit on both sides. They won't let you do that anymore. Right now, data sold entry is only for the buyer. It's only buy side. They switched it. Yes. So the only way we can do data sold entry for both sides is if we have this filed in the beginning. We can't file it and then do it immediately. They say that doesn't count. We're in violation of clear cooperation. It has to be filed in the beginning. It has to be a time frame.
If you scroll up to the top, it says office exclusive. Are they thinking now the seller that only you can sell, nobody else?
It says no entry into the MLS. So we're not entering this into the MLS. If we took a listing agreement,
You wouldn't have to enter.
or
Unless they check
that they don't want it in the MLS, in which case we could only share it within all of our offices, which we have 41, actually over 60, but because our offices
But
are
with
all
this,
premier
we can-
offices.
we can market to everyone,
Not with
just
this, with the commission agreement, because clear cooperation is only pertinent to an exclusive right of sale listing agreement. When you have a listing agreement, you must comply with clear cooperation. A commission agreement does nothing to do with clear cooperation. This is the distinction. Is everybody with me? So we have to do this, otherwise we are not going to be able to get credit for both sides in the MLS. So they're no longer allowing us to put it in and pend it because the dates don't match, and then we're getting flagged for violations. And then they're not allowing us to fix the date because we'd have to go back a week, a month, and they're like, no, that's a violation, you can't do that. And so now they're not going to give the agent the credit for having the listing. It's a real pain in the neck. But this is what MLS does. They get bored and they like to change the rules. So everybody understand this. Any questions on how this works? It's very important you understand this if you want to get credit in the MLS. We all good? Anybody having a question? Okay, so now let's dive into the actual listing agreement. Now, there are actually 2 listing agreements that are allowed to go into the MLS, the exclusive right of sale listing agreement, and there's another exclusive right of sale listing agreement that I'm never going to train on because it's stupid. Because what it does is it allows the seller to sell their own home and you would be excluded from commission. Yeah, I'm never going to train on it. Even when I train listing agreements and it's listed in my training material and I train it at the board, I don't train on it. And then I get people asking me about it and I say, don't use that one. Because it's stupid. Why would you want to do that, right? It makes no sense. Sure, allow them to sell it on their own and exclude yourself. Why would you do that? It makes no sense at all. So again, the only one we're going to use, and we all know, is the exclusive right of sale listing agreement. But to my point, this is the only thing that matters with clear cooperation. The commission agreement is not pertinent when it comes to clear cooperation. As you noticed in the commission agreement, it said nothing about clear cooperation, right? It said if you, here it does. It has an entire section that talks about clear cooperation. Because if you take a listing agreement, the whole lawsuit, and everybody knows the reason clear cooperation came about is because the Department of Justice sued the National Association of Realtors and they settled. And the whole thing was because they said, if you have a listing, you cannot have a pocket listing. It must be available for all people to sell. That is exactly where clear cooperation came from. This is national. And we know, everybody's aware, there are still agents who are trying to keep them and share them with their own little networks. And let me tell you, the National Association is very well aware of that. So if you have people that are doing that, they're aware and they're looking out for them. There's a billion ways, by the way, probably a billion and one. Every other month, I hear about a new way that I can report agents. It's awful. So they're constantly looking at ways. That's why the MLS keeps changing these rules, by the way, because they're looking for new ways to shut down agents on this clear cooperation thing. So I want everybody to be very aware of that. That $2,500 fee, I wouldn't be surprised if they increase it to make it even more. Yes. So if you do not follow, and Yanni just had a heart attack over there. She's like, what $2,500 fee? If you do not comply with clear cooperation, I know everybody on here knows what clear cooperation is, but just for sake of repeating myself, I will say what it is. Clear cooperation means that when you have a listing, this date here, which is the beginning date, or the date all parties sign and it is delivered, okay? Sign and delivered. We're going to talk about that in a second. This is very important. People understand this. That is what is known as the effective date of the agreement, right? Whichever happens last, then 5 business days. Everything in the MLS is business days. Everything in our contract is calendar days. Everything in the MLS is business days. 5 business days from whichever happens last, this must be in the MLS. If it is not in the MLS, you are in violation. $2,500 fine to the realtor, not to me, to the realtor. Now, here's another thing, guys. If any marketing, that is a flyer, that is photos being sent. So if you send it to a realtor and they send it to somewhere else, that would be a violation. It would be a sign in the yard. And this is where we're having a ton of problems with Great House signs. But actually, I was talking to, I think it's Teresa yesterday, right? Teresa, is it you? Teresa, come on. She can't talk. That's right. She's mute. She has a good possibility of a new sign company. We're hopeful because Great House Signs has been awful. Has anybody noticed how bad they've been? Terrible. So the problem is all over their website, by the way, if you ever look at their page, we do not guarantee when we install our signs. It's supposed to be 24 to 48 hours from when you order it, but it could be same day. It could be a week from now. We don't know, but it's supposed to be 24 to 48 hours from when you order it. The problem is if we order it before the listing goes live and they deliver it and put it out, we're in violation of clear cooperation because you have 1 business day for it to be in the MLS. So we cannot put the sign in and be in violation of clear cooperation. The day that our listing goes live is when we order the sign because we don't know when they're going to put the stupid thing in is the problem.
What's the fine for that?
$2,500.
I called the realtor on that. I told you you've had a sign out there for about a month and a half.
You shouldn't have called the realtor. You should have put her into MLS. She would have gotten the $2,500 just sent to her bill. You were too nice to call the realtor.
Mhm.
Should have told me there's about 50 ways I could put her in.
Well, she's a realtor that was bad to me once.
Oh, we should have just put her in. No,
So bad to me.
$2,500, guys. You get that sent to you. Yep. Don't be nice to these people because they're not going to be nice to you. So this is the problem we're having. So if we can't count on consistency, we can't order the sign before we know it goes live. What if something happens, the paperwork gets delayed or something like that? Then they actually do deliver the sign. Now we're in violation and you know people are going to put it on you. And now you're going to get a violation of $2,500. This is the problem we're having.
Question, with the commission agreement, are you allowed to put a sign if the seller wants you to? Just because it might get more
No,
attention?
because you don't have a listing.
Has to be
You can
posted
only,
by owner.
that would actually be, so Andrea asked, if you don't have a listing, are you allowed to put the sign? The answer to that is no, that's actually a violation against the public understanding. It's deceptive practice.
Okay.
And that would be a DBPR violation. So don't do that. That's really bad. That's clear cooperation and GDPR violation. That's ugly. Don't go there. Yeah. So everybody understand what's happening with the signs. So, and then they're just gotten so bad. So we're trying to switch. Oh, Sonia, can you get with Teresa White? She's got a new company. We're trying to switch sign companies because we hate Great House signs. They're awful. And apparently they're doing very bad with our signs because they're beating them all up and they look terrible. So we want to switch companies because we hate them. There we go. Okay, so that's what's happening with the signs, guys. So we've all been totally frustrated with them. Oh yeah, and they're unresponsive. There we go. There's the other part about it. So, but that's the problem with all these things. You cannot put any marketing out because as soon as you do, you have a violation if you are not in the MLS within 1 business day. But it is a business day. Now, I want to talk to you here about this. You see this right here? Did I have somebody who wanted to join? Let's make sure I don't have somebody who wanted to join. No, we're good. Okay, so right here, you see this? This right here, where this begins, we have to post date this because oftentimes, what is this? Photography gets pushed off because it's rainy, right? Or we're just not 100% ready to go live. Well, we don't ever want to be missing this date because also within MLS, we have to, they can request, oh, yes. And you have to make sure that you're getting your owners to sign the MLS data sheet or at least the printout and signing what's going in because MLS is requiring that now. Because they can't request to see the listing agreement, but they can request that. And they're doing that for clear cooperation. Because they want to make sure that the dates are aligning. Because if this date says one thing and we're putting it in the MLS on another date, they want to make sure those dates align. Yeah, I know. So the back of every list agreement states, as you see here, which were written by an attorney and approved by MLS, seller and broker hereby acknowledge and agree that all terms and covenants and conditions contained in this listing agreement shall remain in full force and effect as of the date this listing agreement is fully executed by all parties. So that means that you can post date this out a month, but as long as this is signed and delivered by today, tomorrow, whatever, the neighbor can't come over and say, hey, I'll do it for 4%. You're in a listing agreement. It doesn't matter when this is going to start. And you can put it in the MLS anytime before. It doesn't matter. Everybody with me?
So before this date, anytime.
Anytime.
Between effective and the start date, but after it's 5 days. Okay.
Exactly. So after this date, you only have 5 business days.
Yeah.
So I say push this date out as long as you want. It really doesn't matter. And just explain it to your seller. We're going to give ourselves some time for clear cooperation to make sure that we're never in violation. But anytime we're ready, we're going to go anytime before. It's just for compliance purposes. Everybody with me? This is extremely important. You do not put this, I get this and we're beyond the date. And now you have to go get the sign by the seller to push it out. Because I can't put it in the MLS if this date is passed. Because the MLS won't let me put it in there. It's already a violation. So it's a problem. And then they're going to call to see my records. It has to match. And if DBPR, which they do audit our stuff, sees that there's that it is a discrepancy, we could get fines for that. So there's all this stupid compliance crap that's becoming a nightmare. So just push this date out as far as you can. Everybody good on that? Here's another thing that I heard from an agent recently. They thought that this date right here, oh no, on a contract, sorry, the date that the offer was valid until, you know how you do a date, this offer is valid until, they thought that was the effective date of contract. That's not an effective date of a contract. Notice that in a listing agreement or in a as is or in a regular residential contract, there is nothing written in here about what the effective date is there? You never see anything written the effective date because the effective date of any contract is the date that all parties sign and it's delivered. So it's never written anywhere.
And it starts counting the day after, right?
Correct. You start counting.
Is this day after or
the calendar day.
calendar?
So if this is today, the 7th, thank you. And let's say I sent it to Andrea and she signed it today, but I didn't get it back in my inbox until tomorrow morning at 12:05 a.m. What day is effective? The 7th, everyone signed it on the 7th, or the 8th?
The
eighth.
day after.
The 8th. The effective date is the day that it was delivered. So even though all parties signed it on the 7th, it was actually delivered on the 8th in the
And
morning.
delivered could be a share from .oop with a PDF file. could be
Doesn't matter,
anything.
whenever all parties received it. Now, if you got it in your inbox, right, 11:58 p.m., but you didn't see it till the next day, it doesn't matter. It was still delivered to you the same day on the 7th. So that's the effective date. That is the number one thing that people get confused on. Now, in a listing agreement, it doesn't matter because it's between us and the customer. In a residential contract, that's probably the number one thing that people get confused on. And every date thereafter is based off that date. So everybody in the beginning of any contract should say to the other side, congratulations, we're in contract. This is the effective date. Because I guarantee you, people are thinking it's a different date. You think it's the 7th, you think it's the 8th, and everybody's saying the inspection's the wrong day, and it's a problem. That is probably the number one thing that people mess up. And then they're like, well, that wasn't the inspection date. Yes, it was the inspection date. Well, no, the effective date. No, the effective date was the 7th. No, it was the 8th. And that is the number one thing that people mess up because they don't understand what the effective date, and they don't know when to start counting, to your point. So if the effective date is the 7th, you start counting the 8th, the 9th, the 10th. You count the next day. You don't count the 7th, right? And that's what people don't understand. The
Time of
number
day
one
is
thing
not-
that causes deals to blow up. I'll tell you right there. Okay, so, but not so much in an exclusive right of sale listing agreement, because who is this deal between? Your seller, we know what to write there, the broker. I see this is written wrong all the time. What do we write here? Thank you, Andrea. Premier Sotheby's International Realty. Never write your name because you're not the broker. And please don't write my name, although I am the broker, but write Premier Sotheby's International Realty, write the brokerage here. It's not actually Carrie Prieto. I am the broker, the managing broker of multiple offices here, but they're actually in contract with Premier Sotheby's International Realty. Okay, everybody good on that? And then I always think it's funny that they put fair housing right up front and center. Like they really want to make sure everybody understands we are not going to discriminate right here. So there it is. And then let us make sure right here, including appliances. This is one thing that I see people are not putting in here. They're not asking, is the washer and dryer going to convey? Are we going to be including, and not just appliances, guys, let's really think outside the box, like that Ring doorbell that's causing stupid deals to blow up. It's not an appliance, but it's something that's ridiculous and it still causes deals to blow up. Or, you know, things like, for example, the solar lighting. I mean, yeah, deals are blowing up over stupid things like solar lighting. Yeah, I know, especially if it's a lot of solar lighting. Or maybe, hello, what if there's solar panels? Okay, we've seen a lot of solar panels these days. That needs to go in here if there's solar panels. And then if they are, guys, are they leased? Dear God, you might need to rethink that listing. Are they owned or are they financed? This is the time we need to be finding all that out, and we need to put all that in here. I have not seen any of this on a listing agreement. We need to put that in here because we're finding a lot of this stuff out way too late in the deal. So please start really adding that kind of stuff here. Now, another thing, property is or not occupied by a tenant. One thing I want you to start thinking about too, what if it is short-term? Short-term rental. Is it or is it not occupied by a tenant? It is occupied by a tenant, right? But it's different. It's not current. So we need to actually start thinking about this here, right? We do. Let's start thinking about how we're filling this out here. Because if it's a short-term rental, like who has one right now that it is short-term occupied and will be occupied through like October. And they actually have to pay $100 to let the people come see it for an hour in between the time that someone leaves and someone comes in. whose listing is that? I cannot remember, but it's crazy. We have these things, right? But this is the time we need to start thinking about that, okay? Now, obviously, this oftentimes I see blank on people's listing agreements. Okay, these are my listing agreements. These are my agents. Please make sure you're actually asking these questions. Are you accepting conventional? Are you accepting VA? Know what the FHA limits are. Hey, Tom, did you leave? Did you leave? Tom, what's the FHA limit?
It varies. It's about 300,000.
300? I thought it went up.
Actually, let me check.
Okay, find out for
Maybe,
me.
yeah, it varies, but maybe it's like 417. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's higher. Yeah, can you find out for me?
Yeah, I will.
Thanks.
So in
Okay.
the house for 600, you can't accept FHA.
Right, 600, you cannot accept FHA because it's not going to go that high. So
But if
this
you
is the
have a higher
thing.
down payment,
But it doesn't, I mean, 600 is not going to be getting an FHA unless they're really, really bad credit. And that's what's indicative of, right? So this is where you got to think about this. And if they're that bad credit, do they really have $200,000 of down payment?
I did have a buyer like that, but it was because he wanted to be a first-time home buyer.
But I'd rather you not accept it and let them come and ask you.
Okay.
Because most of the time what you get are people who don't pay attention. They all start putting it in. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. So you really need to understand what these limits are and understand if you're accepting them or not, so that at least you're having a good conversation. You're not just auto filling in, or worse, you're not putting anything down. And then what, Cindy's guessing or Jill, and they're just filling in what? I mean, this is my question. When I see these things are blank, how do they know what to fill in? I don't know. Are they just randomly filling stuff in? I don't know. I don't know how they know what to put down. Are they guessing? Shouldn't be happening. You guys should be telling us what should be going down.
420.
Okay, guys, 420 is the FHA limit. Thank you very much, Tom.
And VA?
VA is no limit. VAs, we had a VA that went up to 1.2 million. So, I mean, VAs can be great buyers because they don't have to put any deposit down. So when there was appraisal gaps, they'd be more than happy to put down a lot of times the money differential because they had no money to put down. So sometimes they're the most qualified. But if it's a blower up house, please do not take a VA because you know that the inspection is going to be a problem, right? So seller financing, I actually just saw a crazy deal where the seller took a lot of seller financing. But maybe that's the time to have that conversation. Please, we're not assuming any mortgage. I do not see any of that happening anytime soon. So you can pretty much skip all of that stuff. This is interesting. The seller pay mortgage discounts or any other closing costs. We're not there yet, but you never know. Beginning of next year, we may get into a situation where we may start talking about that up front. And actually, I did see one of our listings where the seller was willing to contribute 2%, I think, towards buying down the rate or something with closing costs. So if you are having that conversation up front, put it in a listing agreement, right? Why not? And that way you have some play as to what you can do when you're putting it in the MLS, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it cannot be with contingencies, right? Because that one was with.
No, a bonus. Thank you, Miss Andrea. A seller can offer closing cost assistance. That could be however they want to do it. They can say, if you give a full offer, I'll do closing cost assistance. That's a negotiation. A bonus to a realtor cannot be with contingencies.
No,
So-
but 2%, seller was offering 2% for full price off.
No, they can negotiate. That's fine. And
No,
they should
within
leave that
MLS.
to they really should leave that to the negotiation. But a bonus to a realtor cannot be based upon tied to anything. So a lot of people don't know that. They think that they could say, I'll pay you a $2,000, $5,000 bonus to the realtor if you bring a full price offer. Anyone think you can still do that? You don't, because I just told you can. I blew it. But the reality is you cannot. That's a code of ethics violation. People didn't know that. You are not allowed to tie an incentive, a bonus to any type of performance. So it's a bonus for everyone or it's a bonus for no one. So you can make it a bonus tied to if you bring a buyer by such and such a date, right? But everybody gets it. You cannot say if you bring a full price offer, you get this bonus. That is, and people write that in all the time, by the way, which is a code of ethics violation. So what does that mean? That means that let's say you wrote that in and somebody brought an offer that was not a full price offer, and you're like, and they took a screenshot of the MLS that said that, and then they go to closing and you didn't pay that. Well, they just haul you right down to the board, and you're going to end up paying that because it is a code of ethics violation. So now you're like coming right out of your commission, and you thought you did so good, and you didn't, because now you didn't get a full price offer. So maybe the seller didn't pay you extra that you were going to willing to pay to the other side, right? And now you just lost a lot of your commission. So it's very important you understand that. You cannot tie a bonus to a realtor. Now, to a seller's closing costs, so that all that stuff is negotiation. They can do whatever they want, but you do not want to put that in the MLS, right? You could say sellers willing to contribute to closing costs. You could do stuff like that, but a lot of that should be left to negotiation. Follow me?
So you have to offer to everyone, not at a full price offer, right?
The seller can, it's just, it gets a little bit, it gets a little gray. Yeah, the seller's not held to the code of ethics, so it's not a code of ethics thing, but it could be discriminatory. Because what if someone says, I couldn't do it based upon, you know what I'm saying? This is where it could get ugly. So I would just, it's better to do that kind of thing in negotiation. Just be careful about that kind of stuff. Okay, so, and broker will use diligent effort to sell the property in accordance with the listing agreement until the sales contract is pending on the property. That's all of our obligations. But then we go into our multiple listing service, and this is where it talks about it's beneficial and to be, you know, exposed to everybody, and the broker is obligated to put it into the MLS. Of course we are, because why? Clear cooperation. And then it talks about what the clear cooperation rules are a little bit. And then obviously we have to report all the information to the MLS, price, terms, financing information, unless they authorize us in writing not to give that information. And sometimes we'll have that where the seller doesn't want certain information to go in there, and then that we have to put that in writing. And then it tells us that we have to market the property to the public unless they tell us not to. And that is when they tell us not to do that, right? Does not authorize the broker to display the property in the MLS. If you ever get this box checked, in my opinion, why would you even continue? You don't have a listing, right? You can't put it on the MLS. You have now an office exclusive. This is what this is. If they check this box right here, which then they have to initial these boxes, you can't market this because it says right here, seller does not authorize to put the property on the MLS.
And then you cannot put a for sale sign.
You can't put a force, you can't do anything. All you can do is share this with the people in our company. That is all you can do. So never, ever, ever let anybody initial 60. Everybody with me? And also never let anybody initial 65. Because by initialing this, the reason they're initialing this is because they signed 60. So oftentimes I see people initialing this. Why are you initialing this? The initials here are because you're understanding. It's like you're doubly saying, yeah. I don't authorize you pulling the MLS. Yeah, I understand. By putting it in there, it's all this great stuff. And now you can't put a for sale sign in. And now you can only tell people in your office. Yep, I'm good. I'm signing and I'm signing. Yep, I understand. That's what these initials are for, saying, I understand you can't put a sign. I understand you can't put it in the MLS. I get it. You can only tell people. So this whole thing here, never, ever, ever let people sign any of that. Does it make sense? Now, I have had where people have signed this, but didn't check this, and I didn't kick it back to you because really it's okay because they didn't check this box. But it doesn't make sense. It means to me that the person who submitted this listing didn't understand what this meant. Right? I mean, you could be honest if you didn't know what those things meant. But that's the point of these little initials. You're saying you understand this, that the for sale sign cannot be placed in the property, and you also understand that the broker is limited to market the property only to the agents in their office. That's what they're doing here. They're saying they don't authorize it to be in the MLS, and they understand these two things. That's the whole point of signing that. It's like doubly saying, yep, that's what I want. Everybody good? So do not. So as a matter of fact, I should make sure in our templates, but make sure that this is not set for them to initial when you send it through .loop. Everybody good? I think I took it out already, but just in case. Sometimes things get reset in there. Oh, one more thing while we're on the topic of .loop. When you are sending, thank you, Andrea, getting your loops prepared and you put the address in, the next question is to add your loop template. Don't do it. Hit next. Leave it empty. Next, 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 next. You've created an empty loop. That's what I want you to do. Do not add the loop template in the beginning. When you do, you get every possible thing in that loop in your thing, and you can't get rid of them unless you archive them. It's a big mess. You get all these things in there that you don't need, right? So instead, you create an empty loop for the property, and then you say add documents, and you go to templates, and now you just check the things that apply to that. So
Hey,
much
Karen?
better. Yes, Juliana. How's
Hi.
Jules doing? You have
Hi,
Juliana
hi.
there.
I
are
know.
you?
I signed in a different computer. Now, question, could we possibly have a, because I usually do that because we do have the must-have documents that we're going to either list or purchase a property. Couldn't we upload a set of documents that are the must-haves for Premier Sotheby's so we don't mess up and we don't go to closing? Oh, we're missing this or this document. So we don't have to skip it. We can just upload on Dotloop, PSER documents or carry listing documents or something that we can just click and our documents are ready for us.
They are actually in each loop. I will show you really quickly if you're okay. If you go into .loop, and let's say, for example, let's go back, and you go into my listing folder. I'm the one who maintains .loop. So the thing is, I maintain it for everybody. So people are like, oh, can you add this? Can you add this? So I could create a carry only file folder. I could do that if you wanted me to.
Well, it's the only reason I ask is because, do you want I am the first one, I always press yes, please upload all the documents necessary so I don't have Cindy
Yes,
or Carrie on my tail afterwards.
Yeah, see, because they have a lot of stuff in this listing folder that people keep wanting in there. Like the referral agreement, you might not have one, right? Licensee disclosure, you might not need that. So that's the thing. So you do need the PSER affiliated, you do need the wire fraud, but you might not need the commission agreement. So I
Right.
agree, there's stuff in here you don't need. All right, I will create that for you, Jules.
I'm
Absolutely.
everybody.
Bare bones must have. I'll do that for you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Everybody would
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. Anything I can do it. Happy to do it. Good point. Okay, so back to, I don't know where we were. Okay, yes, back to those. Please don't ever do that. Okay, also obtain information related to present mortgage of the property. I know we say we do that. I'm going to tell you that I don't really love that, because a lot of times people have like seconds and thirds, or another time that people have, they maybe did the COVID thing where they didn't continue to pay. They allowed them not to pay during COVID. And if we didn't get all that information and then it comes to closing and we missed something, they're going to come back to us and say it was our fault. So you know what? We're not their mortgage brokers. I really kind of feel like that's a little out of our scope. And so I really don't like this one. Obtain information. I would rather them get all that stuff together with the title company, get all those things together. I don't want to be the one in charge of that personally. Obtain a comparative market analysis. Of course, we do that. Now, make sure, I've seen this on multiple occasions where people do not check this when we're using a lockbox. You know why we have to check that, guys? That is our CYA, because by checking this, it allows us to say, if they use a lockbox, we're not ensuring the property's security. We're advising them to remove their valuables, but it's for their benefit, and they are releasing us and anybody working through us and the board association and everybody from liability for any damage or loss that occurs from using the box. So if we're not checking that, are they actually releasing us from all that liability? I'm just saying there's a reason that that's there, right? Make sure you're having them check that box if you're using a lockbox, right? Everybody good with that? Now here's a big one. Withhold verbal offers. Please, everybody check that. Do not give verbal offers. That is the worst thing you could do for your seller. First of all, it puts your seller in a worse negotiating opportunity. Because if you tell, as a matter of fact, I was teaching a class on this, and someone said, yeah, I did that. And then I told the seller, and they said, okay. And then I told the agent, and you know what the agent did? Which I'm not surprised. They changed the offer of compensation from 3 to 2.5 or 2.5 to 2 or whatever in the MLS. before the offer came in. She said, can he do that? I was teaching a code of ethics class, actually. I don't know whichever one I was teaching. I teach them all. And can they do that, guys? They can, because they can change the offer of compensation until the offer comes in. Once an offer is received, the offer of compensation cannot be changed. But the agent knew they were going to do that. They already did the verbal thing, so they just changed it in the MLS, and the agent got the short end of the stick there with a lower commission.
What if you print it out? Print out the.
Didn't matter. The offer wasn't in.
Okay.
You always want to print it out once you've given them the offer, because I will tell you, I've seen on a number of times where at closing, they've changed the offer compensation, and you just simply send over that MLS sheet and you say, oh, that's funny, because at the time of the offer of compensation was this. So you have it wrong in the system. And the agent will go, oh, whoopsie, I don't know how that happened.
But how does this affect our seller if we're not telling them the verbal offer? Because we're not going to lower the
You don't
commission.
want to do a verbal offer. You say, put it in writing. There is no such thing as a verbal offer. Verbal will not held up in the court of law. So why would you tell them? You say, you want to put in an offer? Fabulous. Put it in writing. I'm happy to present it. Because once you have it in writing, now commissions can't be changed. Nothing can be changed because you have an offer in writing. Once things are in writing, everything is set, right? That's the difference. But you cannot do that with verbal. Verbal doesn't count, right? That's the point. So I'm going to very, very, very strongly suggest, as strong as I possibly can, withhold all verbal offers. Verbal. It's one thing to say, hey, yeah, I think go ahead, put it in writing. You guys can talk, right? I'm not saying you can't talk, but do not tell your seller, say, yeah, I think we have an offer coming in. We'll see when it comes in. Because you get your seller all excited, right? And then it comes in and it's different. That's another thing that happens. Because now they think they got it, right? They think they know your bottom, or they think, whatever. And then they're wrong. And you can say, no, that's not what we agreed upon. I'm sorry. So this is the other thing. So always, I would say, make sure you check that. And this one, do not check. Withhold all offers when seller accepts the sales contract. If you do that, you can't take backup offers. And this is something that we need to know if you've checked or not. To put in the MLS, we have to know yes, backup offers or no backup offers. So this is something that we always check, and it needs to go on the data entry sheet. Are we accepting backup offers or not? That's the one that we look at. That we have to know, did the seller want the backup offers or not? Everybody good with that? Okay. Now this one, seller does not authorize an estimate market of the value. This is the AVM. This is the Zillow's estimate. This is the Realtor.com automated. Don't automatically check no until you've checked the property. Because I will tell you multiple times, I have seen Realtor.com, even Zillow, theirs is much higher than we're going to come in at. Why would I not want to show that? It actually helps us, because then people are looking at it, the public is looking at that, and they're like, wow, this house is worth more than they're asking for it. That's going to help you. And if it changes, we just can say withhold it. We can change that at any time if it ever does something that doesn't look good for our seller. But if you just check no as a standard, that's not a good practice. You should be checking that before you decide if you should withhold it or not.
What if we withhold it and then change our mind because there was another sale that affected and went up?
You can do that.
Oh, and how do we do that? Do an addendum?
You don't have to. As long as you tell the seller, you have the conversation with the seller, and the seller is aware of what you're doing, that's fine. The most important thing is that people just automatically check this and don't explain what they're doing to the seller. Yeah. The sellers don't care. You could add it on a status change form. We don't really have to do it because most of the time sellers don't care. What happens truly is that people automatically just say no, withhold it. And I'll ask them why, and they'll say, because I always did. That's the answer that I hate, guys, by the way. Horrible answer. Horrible. Never say that. Now, the comment thing, I don't really care. Some people feel strongly about not letting people put comments or reviews. If it's a beautiful property and people want to comment and say how gorgeous it was, I don't think is a negative. I don't really care. I have no strong feelings about the comments. I really very rarely ever see comments, so I don't really have a feeling about that. So talk to your seller, see how they feel. That one doesn't kill me. But this AVM does, because sometimes it does help you. And if you just automatically say no, it's a silly thing.
What if Zillow is coming up, like I have a listing now at 640, Zillow said 638, it's overpriced, so it's good for me. But the other like Redfin
Mhm.
and the other ones had it at 5.
Then I would say no.
Say no, right?
Yeah, look at a couple of them. I always say, you know what, when I do a CMA, I do a power sellers report,
Yeah.
and that includes 3 of those anyway, so I would have already known that.
Yeah.
So if 3 of them look good or 2 of them look good, but I would always look at Zillow and Realtor.com because those are the 2 most popular ones.
Mhm.
If those 2 popular ones look good, I would say yes. If they look bad, I'd say no. Yeah, the Trulia, the Redfin, just like hit or miss. Everybody good on that? Okay, the seller's obligation, most of this has to do with the fact that obviously they have to cooperate with us, right? They have to refer any kind of inquiries they get. I recommend talk to them about that because sometimes they forget to tell us about that. And this is what happens oftentimes when you get that little squirrely seller who wants to, by the way, talk to somebody who wants to buy their home and they're like, my listing's ending. Come see me in a week. We'll work something out. Remember that in a second when I'm going to show you what we need to put in there for that person. Recognize that we have obligations to the MLS. That's for non-clear cooperation. They have to give us the keys to the property, but more importantly, they have to make the property available to show during reasonable times. If you have a seller who doesn't want to do that, highlight this and remind them that they already agreed to that. We have that sometimes. They have to inform us before they do anything like lease or mortgage or encumber their property, and they have to hold us harmless. This whole thing is about holding us harmless. And they obviously have to, comply with FERPTA if they are a foreign seller. And they have to make all legally required disclosures, including facts that materially affect the property's value that are not readily observable to the buyer. The seller certifies and represents that the seller knows of no material facts, government, building code violations, unobservable facts other than the following. This little thing here is trying to give the seller the opportunity to disclose, which is a requirement by the state of Florida. Now, I do not think there's enough room here for them to disclose. That's why we ask them to fill in the seller's disclosure, which is not a requirement by the state of Florida. They have to the requirement is they have to write something in writing for a requirement. That is the requirement, that they must disclose in writing. So this little line could suffice, but in truth, it's not enough information. So that's why we ask them to do the seller's disclosure. And by the way, if they've never lived there, don't just cross it out and say never lived there. Have them do, I don't know. It's to cover them. Because if someone sues them because of lack of disclosure, that's the sue. They're going to sue them, right? It's not about us. We don't know. We didn't live there. So better that they took the time just to say, I don't know. I never lived there versus just crossing it out. And there was some blanket one that went around that said, I never lived in the property. Don't use that one, please. It was a Premier Sotheby's thing. I don't know where it came from. Do not use that. Only use ones that came from Florida Realtors FAR Bar, okay? Only use ones that are created by the legal team. I do not like anything that's randomly created that have anything to do with legal disclosure, okay? Everybody good with that? And even if it's a pain because they don't like to hit every little one, it's for a disclosure that they could be sued for. So I don't want anything to have our name on it. That is like a basic, I've never lived there. No. And then they say, well, I got that from my realtor. Oh, Jesus, no. Okay. Use the one from the legal team. I don't want anything to do with that. Okay. Everybody good? All right. Now here's what I was talking about. The compensation. Are we good with time? Oh, I'm 5 minutes over. Dang it. Okay, I'll try to go really fast. Compensation. Obviously, we know this is the total commission. I have seen this where, let's say you were doing 6% and people wrote 3 here. And I'd like to call you and say, so you're working for free, because this is the total, right? This is what we're all getting paid, right? These obviously you can write non-applicable because we're not doing any options and we're not doing a lease, because you know how I feel about leasing. Now, remember what I told you about that sneaky little squirrely seller who talked to the buyer and said, come back in a week? That's what this termination date protection period is that I often see people leaving blank, which, by the way, doesn't say if left blank. This is to protect you. If that seller comes back after your listing period, the buyer comes back and they go in contract and they close. If you have nothing here, you're not going to get paid. But if you wrote, which I like to write 180 days, but you could write whatever you want here, now they owe you a commission because you brought that buyer, right? Don't leave this blank, guys. Why did you work for free? It's only people that you brought that you're going to be protected on. Sound good? And if they go into another listing agreement, obviously it's null and void. But you do not leave this blank. I see this blank all the time. This is about retaining deposits. It does say if you leave a blank, 50% goes to the brokerage. We have never retained any deposits. We just typically do not do that. Can we? Sure, because it says that, but we don't. Compensation. This is a huge pet peeve of mine. Last one I'm going to leave you on right here because then we're late. This is the number one thing that, by the way, I teach agents to use against other agents, okay, in a listing. This is saying what we're going to pay the co-broke, right? The buyer's agent. In Florida, we have 3 brokerage relationships. We have single agents, right? Transaction brokers, and no brokerage relationship. Let me ask you, how many agents actually know what the brokerage relationship is? A very low percentage. And even seasoned agents, it's very, very sad. In the state of Florida, we are all assumed to be transaction brokers. If you are anything other, which would be single agent or no brokerage relationship, you are required by law to give a disclosure on your agency at the first meeting with the customer. There's an actual form, and it says what your agency disclosure is. If you were anything other, when you have the agency disclosure and you give an offer, at that time with the offer, you must send the agency disclosure with the offer. That is the only way that the brokerage on the other side would know what your agency relationship is, right? Because Liani's with another company, she sends me an offer. How do I know what a brokerage relationship is? It's her relationship with the customer. I have no clue. Unless she sent with her offer that disclosure that disclosed to me she had a different agency relationship, which is required by the code of ethics that she must send that to me. Okay. And it has to be sent with the offer or before. But why would she send it before? Because that would be retarded. So it's usually sent at the time of the offer. I have done this. I've been a broker now for about 19 years. In the entire time I've really only got one. The other one, they just lied because we put it in wrong. That's like a whole nother story. But yeah, one. And the guy didn't even know what it meant. And he was wrong. And he was going to get no commission because we said 0. It was a big mess. So we ended up giving him a commission because he didn't even understand it. It was ridiculous. The point is, guys, nobody even knows what it means. Nobody knows. This is what people think that means. They think that no brokerage relationship means when a lazy agent from Miami sends the customer, wants you to handle the customer, wants you to do all the showings, wants you to do all the inspection, wants you to do everything. They're lazy. They're not doing anything. Well, clearly that's no brokerage relationship. I mean, it's called lazy. It's not called no brokerage relationship. That's an agency disclosure. It's called lazy. So they think they're going to get paid nothing if they rate 0 here. That's not what it means. They're still going to get 3% because they're transaction brokers. That's the problem. That's why people write 0 or 1 here, because they think they can pay those lazy agents less. That's not what it means. Doesn't mean that. It means that you are telling people, I'm not going to pay someone. Some of you out there are not going to get paid. And some of the people out there going, oh my God, is that me? I don't know, because I don't know what that means. I better not bring my customer there. So all that is doing is reducing the amount of exposure on that property. So I might be a newer agent. I have no clue what the hell that means. I have a great customer who might love that house, but I'm like, crap, that's 0 or 1. I'm not going to take him there because I'm not getting paid any money there. So I'm going to go over here.
Why would someone sign a no brokerage relationship with the buyer?
Because if that is their brokerage relationship with the agency, that's what they have to do. It's a law.
But it has to come from the broker.
The brokerage sets what their agency relationship is. So again, in the state of Florida, we don't have to do it because we're all assumed to be transaction brokers. But if we chose to be single agents, for example, you would have to sign that agency relationship, which means you can only work one side. So most people, like I said, are not that. That's the other problem. You're not helping yourself at all. I've met one person who was, and I don't even think they really were in a brokerage relationship. That's even the funnier part about it. I think he just didn't know what the heck he was doing. So my point is, it's not helping anybody. You're not saving money by doing it. All you're doing is cutting the opportunity of people coming to show that house because they're like, I might not get any money if I bring him there. So I'm just not going to bring him.
And if a broker just brings you a client, like from Miami, hey, I have a client, but you're going to do everything. I'm a non-brokerage, so get 3%. I can tell him, no, you get a referral fee.
Sure, but he's
Right?
not a non-broker.
Exactly.
He's a transaction broker. He's just a lazy one. And that's the problem. And you can't tell him I'm going to give him 3 because he's a transaction broker. And if he saw the offer of compensation, he brings a buyer, he gets the 3%. Because he's a
If he puts
transaction
in the
broker.
offer.
Exactly.
Not if he just gives it the name.
No, he still has it's a regular deal, right? It's a regular deal. If the seller accepts the offer too, right? It's not, we don't get to pick, it's the seller who picks. But that's my point. It doesn't help anybody. That's my point. So please, please stop putting a lower number here. I don't know who you think you're helping. Nobody's helping. If I see it one more time, the MLS drives me nuts. And by the way, I'm going to teach all my agents to use this against you, even my own agents. Damn it. No, I'm just kidding. But I do, because when we go in a listing presentation, this is the first thing I pick out. I highlight and I say, just out of curiosity, Mr. Seller, there's 3 different types of relationships here. We have single agents, transaction brokers, no brokerage relationship. Is there a reason you didn't want to work with a whole group of realtors? What do you mean? I mean, your agent chose to not work with an entire group. See, they said they wouldn't even pay him commission. They're like, what? Yeah, they didn't want to pay him commission. You know how easy it is to pick up that customer? Yeah, I do it all the time. So just saying, don't do that. So, all right, guys. So there's that. Conditional termination. I want to go over this really quickly. Direct expenses incurred in marketing the property. That's our setup fee of $1,500. You do not need to write that here. That cancellation fee here is whatever you want to put in. If you paid whatever for your photography, for your videography, this is what you write in here. You do not have to add in our $1,500 marketing fee. If and when we get there, I will handle that. Okay. But I want you to see one thing. It says what? Can anyone read this for me? Thank you, Liani. Conditional termination. Does anyone see cancellation? It doesn't say cancel you. It doesn't say withdraw unconditional. It says conditional. So please don't tell your sellers that we're just going to cancel you out, because we're not.
You can't relist.
Because you're going to talk to me, and however long your listing is, you're with us. Don't worry though, I'll help you. I'm here to help you. All right, so that's pretty much the whole thing. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, Carrie, for the yeah, I've been waiting to hit you with it. The agency disclosure, what if someone sends that after we're under contract? Like they notice that, let's say it's 3% single agent, it's like 2.5 transaction. And they're like, oh, well, let me send this disclosure so I can get 3%. Is that valid?
That happens. Yeah, we had some ridiculous thing like that because it was in there wrong, and it happened. We ended up paying it. We shouldn't have to. It was just a big pain in the neck. But if they send us the agency relationship disclosure, we have to pay per whatever we put in the MLS. Per code of ethics, you must pay whatever it said at the time of the offer is how we must pay. And if we have a signed agency relationship with the customer, then we have to follow whatever the agency relationship is. We don't have the relationship with the customer, right? We have to assume whatever the brokerage relationship agency disclosure was correct, as long as it's signed by the customer.
Got it.
Yep, good question.
I have another one, but I want to make sure everyone else can ask their question.
Does anybody else have a question? I hope you guys got something today. I hope you know how to get credit in the MLS. I hope you understand a couple cool new things. The most important thing is we want to help our sellers sell their homes. We want to help use the listing agreement, use the MLS from other listing agreements to help us get the listings. Let me tell you, when you go on a listing, especially a high listing, and they didn't sell and it's expired, and you turn it around and you do that thing about, just out of curiosity, why didn't you want to work with that whole group of realtors? You know how many of the side of the sellers are like, why did my agent do that? I thought it was you. You didn't know about that? You got to keep a straight face though, because if you laugh, it's over. Really? I don't know why they did that. We work with everybody. Sotheby's, yeah, we work with everybody. It's so beautiful. I mean, we never say anything bad about anyone, and you just don't have to. They do it to themselves. It's so beautiful. Really good. Okay, we got our last question, Mark.
It's a different document, but just want to make sure I have clarity on this. For loan approval, is it implied, let's use the example, $600,000 purchase price. It appraises for 580. There's no contingency, like appraisal contingency or anything like that. Is it implied that the buyer is going to bridge the gap without that verbiage being in there, unless the lender is going to deny the loan?
So wait, is it implied that, so the loan, it's 650, is it implied that what?
Is it implied the buyer is gonna have to bridge the gap at closing if it appraises less and the loan isn't denied?
I mean, yeah, kind of, right? Because if the buyer's buying a house at 650 and the lender does not deny the loan, then he has no reason to get out unless you did an appraisal contingency. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I don't have to have buyer and seller agree that the buyer will bridge the gap, that it's just, it's
The
already
thing
in
is,
there.
though, you got to understand that 9 out of 10 times the lender will deny the loan if the home doesn't appraise. And that's why I always say you have to ask the lender, at what price will you deny the loan if the home
Okay.
doesn't appraise? That's the thing. Because the lender's working for the buyer, right? And so he doesn't want to put the buyer out there if the buyer doesn't want to close on the home.
Got it, okay. So
That's why
basically
you
get
want
the
to
lender.
use, yeah, that's why you want to use that appraisal gap, clause in the dot loop.
Okay,
All right, guys, thanks for coming. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Terry.